Hey, welcome to the Sports Reverends podcast. My name is Dan. I'm joined with my big bro. You probably know him as the coach. His name is Coach Joel, and he is not only an amazing coach on the basketball court, but he's also a coach in the stock markets as well. And boy, do we got a special show for you today. You know, a lot of shows, they'll give you something to take away. Some make you laugh. Some help you try to make money, maybe in a get rich quick kind of scheme. Some will make you think about how to solve a murder mystery. Our show will give you something that is better than all those things put together. Hear this. It will be the solution to every single one of your problems. Yeah, I know that sounds absolutely bonkers, but what we're going to share about is how our faith in Christ has pulled us out of the mud, has pulled us out of the trenches, has helped us through every challenge life has thrown at us. And what we know is true is that this will be a solution to every single one of your problems, as it has been for us. And we'll encourage you how to get there and how and why. And sports has played a big role for us in that. So that's why we love talking about sports. We're going to give some hot sports takes, but we're also going to talk about our unapologetic faith, how they all play together. But before we dive in, Coach, why don't you give a little rundown of our show?
All right, we got our quick hitters as always. We're going to look at NFL free agency. Kind of snuck up on us, but the NFL is still keeping the calendar year in its grasp. And we're going to look at deal or no deal. How are we unapologetically living our faith? Or are we? Why don't we start us off with the first quick hitter here, Dan?
All right, some quick hitter news. The New York Yankees, Garrett Cole, will have Tommy John surgery, out for the season.
It's a rough start for the Yankees. Colorado Avalanche, Nathan McKinnon has reached 1,000 points yesterday night, the 100th player to do so. Congrats to him. Only 29.
Wow. Stephen Curry is the new assistant general manager for Davidson University.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. We'll talk about that a different day.
Mm-hmm.
Manchester United, boys,
Woo.
announced plans to build a new 100,000 seat stadium right beside Old Trafford.
Long overdue. Think about all those people who paid the stadium models. You could buy them with Lego. They were like over $500. That'd be tough to give up.
It goes up in value.
Yeah, I guess so. Lastly, Cooper Kupp cannot be traded, but he will be released by the Los Angeles Rams.
If
All
he
right.
can't be traded.
If he can't be traded. Okay, if he can't be traded. Sorry. I read
All
the
good.
Yep. Go ahead.
You skipped it. It's all right. We're going to take care of some business right now. As Dan alluded to in the opening monologue, I am a financial coach. My job here at Train to Invest is to help you learn our methodology and learn how to trade on your own without the help of some secret box, without the help of some quote unquote financial guru giving you advice. It's about teaching you how to make the right decisions in a trading strategy. And a lot of times you will see people saying, I got to follow a newsletter. I got to wait for this indicator to point up, this indicator to point down, and wait for the green light. No, what we teach is the skills necessary for you to make decisions on your own. And what we'd love to do is create a skill set that you can pass on to your family, if you got kids, grandkids, things like that, and make it a lifelong thing. If you are looking to understand what is a tariff or what does my RRSP mean, what is that going to do for me in the future? What's a TFSA? What exactly is stock trading? Check us out at www.train2invest. That's train, the number 2invest.com, and download our free ebook. Give it a read and connect with us. We'd love to see if we're a fit for what you're trying to do in your retirement plans, to do with your extra capital. Maybe you have kids coming into university. Maybe you have a wedding coming up, or maybe you're looking to see what kind of yacht can I buy in the next 10 years. So check us out, www.train2invest.com, train2invest.com, and check out our free ebook. Now, speaking about money, kind of snuck up on all of us, but free agency has started here in the NFL. There's a bunch of new signings, but also a bunch of trades that have happened because the free agency pool wasn't that great. So we're going to go through a couple of these and kind of get your takes on them. And we're going to title this Deal or No Deal. So let's start off with Seattle. DK Metcalf has been traded to the Steelers for a second round pick in 2025 and a swap of the 6th and 7th round picks with the Steelers. And Metcalf has consequently signed a 5-year, $150 million contract extension. Thoughts?
I think it is an incredible deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That combo of DK Metcalf, George Pickens is going to be a QB's dream. They're going to be able to be the best blocking receivers in the game. And they didn't have to pay that much, I don't think, in terms
I
of
think so.
acquiring him. They paid a lot
Yeah.
with the extension.
Money. Yep.
That's a lot of money, but they have the money to spend, and it's nice to see the Steelers spend on the offensive end instead of the defensive end.
True.
So that's kind of a new thing. Could be pretty big for. I'm assuming they're going to go after Russell Wilson again as the quarterback, but that could be a bold assumption. I don't know who they're going to get.
Yeah, we'll continue down here and see. I think I agree with you on that for sure. And if they do go with Russell, he's one of the best deep ball throwers around town right now. Can aim for that back shoulder, no problem. And this division is going to be wild. This division is going to be wild. Let's look at the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen signs a 6-year, $330 million contract with $250 million guaranteed. And just for a bit of context, he did leave money on the table.
Yeah, it is worthwhile for Josh Allen. He is worth it, but that comes with a lot of added pressure. He's got to be the one. So when you're getting paid that kind of money, we're holding all these other quarterbacks to this standard. When you're getting paid this top dollar, that means you have to bring to the table what elevates your team to get to the next level. Currently, they haven't been able to do that. And Josh Allen has played like Superman. So, from my point of view, you're giving the guy all this money, but you're going to be taking away the resources to build the team around him to help him get to the next level. So, it's going to be a difficult road for the Buffalo Bills.
I think this man has come as close as he possibly can to willing his team to win. I don't think it's been a situation where he's been the main cause of the problem, and he's getting paid for what he's done. Like you said, it does eat up some of the cap for sure. But you got to think Patrick Mahomes is thinking, my deal looks pretty good in terms of ripping that contract up and getting more money. I remember when we had Pastor Drew on here, and he was ripping Mahomes' contract.
That's right.
Doesn't look so bad. Doesn't look so bad in this context if you are the Kansas City Chiefs. Devontae Adams signed a 2-year, $24 million contract with the LA Rams. Interesting.
I think the LA Rams just once again put their hat back in the contender category.
Oh.
With Puka Nacua. Devontae Adams is that second guy that will be the great relief for Puka Nacua. They're re-signing Matt Stafford. And the rest of their team is very young. Their defense are young. They got some great corners. They're going to be a very good football team 2025-2026 season.
Yeah, we'll see what Coach McVay can do with Devontae Adams. And I think he's going to have a much better season going to somewhere that's a little more stable. So we'll see. Devontae Adams. All right. So this is a bit of a turnaround, and I don't know what Cleveland's doing, but after requesting a trade, Myles Garrett has signed a 4-year, $100 million extension $160 million extension with $123 million guaranteed.
Is that the
That's
biggest?
crazy.
Is that the most guaranteed money for
outside of non-quarterback? It's pretty close. I think it's a top 2 or 3.
That is pretty incredible. Yeah, the Browns. If I was a Cleveland Browns fan, I would still just be in shock about what they're trying to do. I do like the signing of Myles Garrett. They may have paid. I don't know the percentages. I feel like they are overpaying, but he is one of the best. Like he is when he plays. He is just a automatic. They have to double team him, or he's getting some pressure on your quarterback. So he is that great of a player. Can they fill out the rest of the roster though? Who's playing quarterback? They traded for Kenny Pickett. Who's going to play? Like who's going to be their receiving core and their running back? Are they really going to rely on Nick Chubb? Like I just don't know. I have so many questions on the offensive end, and they're not going to be that great on the defensive end. So just the Browns fans, man, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, and it's also a question of like, is this someone who wants to win or just get money? Right? He requested a trade. He wanted out.
True.
All of a sudden, they slapped down a big fat check, and he says, "Sure," because he's not going to win in Cleveland. Like he secured his bag more than once over. So he's got generational wealth coming in. But
You
I
mentioned
don't
it
know.
before too. Their division is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's cooked, man.
he's cooked. He's locked in there for the next little bit. Let's see here. Max Crosby signed a
Mm.
3-year, $108.5 million extension.
Yeah, I do like this
That's
trade.
nice.
I mean, this
Yeah,
signing. This is a
yeah,
Max Crosby's young and he's got a good 3 years in him. They brought in Geno Smith now, so they have a quarterback, and so
yep,
you'll see they were competitive in a lot of games last year. A lot of losses that were close. So this Vegas Raiders team, at least they have a vision. They have a vision now.
yeah,
So
yeah. And I think
and a
pairing Geno Smith
stable
with
quarterback.
pairing Geno Smith with Carroll again, he'll
Hmm.
have a good year. I think he'll have a really good year, and having Max Crosby there will make things a lot easier. Speaking of quarterbacks, let's go on a bit of a run here. New York Jets have signed Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million deal.
Wow.
Not staying in Pittsburgh, and he thought about it, but explored his options and got some money from the Jets.
Some 5-12 seasons ahead for the New York Jets. They're going to be okay with it, and they'll at least be exciting to watch. He's an exciting player, but my prediction 5-12,
There you
10
go. You
wins
heard
over
it
the
here
next two
first.
seasons.
You heard it here first. They're used to mediocrity in the Meadowlands there. Sam
Mm-hmm.
Darnold signs with Seattle for 3 years, 100.5 million dollars.
This is such a gamble for Seattle.
Yeah,
So they kept Jackson Smith Njigba. They let go of Lockett, traded away DK. So now
yep,
they don't have the weapons on the offense. He's used to Justin Jefferson and that whole crew in Minnesota, probably the best receiving core out there. It's going to be a real show if Sam Darnold has really gotten over that hump of where he was, or if it was playing under that Kevin O'Connell with Justin Jefferson kind of offense where it showed him that you plug any quarterback in there and they can be good.
yeah. I think Minnesota did the right thing. They didn't match the money. The last two games
Yeah.
of the season were quite indicative of what he still struggles with, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's not only on him, but he played very poorly. Like if he had played well and they still lost, I'd say a different story for sure.
Yep.
I'd be more inclined to say let's sign him up. But I don't think you're getting anything more than what Geno Smith gave you. So Seattle is also doing a lot of weird things. Yeah, if you're taking Sam Darnold, why get rid of all your pieces? So that's a weird one. That's a weird one for
Minnesota
sure.
may be in play for the one and the only Aaron Rodgers following the Brett Favre
Yeah.
pathway. So imagine
Oh
Aaron
boy.
Rodgers in that offense. I think could be deadly.
I think it could be deadly for sure. They need somebody established because they got too close. They have a too good of a team to wait for the rookie who didn't play last year to get going. Speaking of rookies who are going to get more shine in year number two, the Falcons re-signed left tackle Jake Matthews to a 2-year, $45 million contract extension with $38 million guaranteed. Are they protecting their blind side for this guy?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a great signing. They got their guy and locked him in. It's good to go.
Yep.
Good for the Falcons. Michael Penix Jr.
Hey,
is going to be standing upright a little bit more.
a little bit more, yeah. And the Commanders have pulled off a big trade. So it's interesting. We'll talk about this one. Commanders trading 2025 third round and seventh round pick, along with the 2026 second and fourth rounds to Houston for Laramie Tunsil,
It's a lot
who
of
is the
picks.
offensive tackle who kept our boy CJ
CJ
Stroud up and
Stroud.
around.
It's a lot of
That's
picks,
interesting.
though. A lot of picks to give up. He's 30 years old, Laramie Tunzel.
Yeah,
He is considered top 3 in the game, I'd
yeah.
say. And Commanders, I like the boldness of the move, but I think they may be giving up a lot of capital in this with those draft picks. Like that's a lot to give up for a 30-year-old lineman, offensive lineman. So we'll see how it goes. I know the next couple seasons will be great for Mr. Jaden Daniels here. So they're going for it. The Commanders, they picked up Debo Samuel as well,
Yep.
and so they're going for it. Yeah, I know that hurts the 49ers' heart there, but they're going for it. So good for them. But I think future wise, this is too much to give up for Laramie Tunzel.
He had an off year last year. I was looking at the metrics and like he was still incredible.
Hmm.
He's still in an off year. He had an amazing year.
Wow.
And you look at what Philly did to them in the playoffs is all that offensive pressure. Now you've upgraded the most quote unquote important position on the line with somebody who's established, who's a veteran, who can help hold things together, and a young dynamic quarterback. I think this hurts Houston more than it helps Washington, and it's tough to give up a player like that for picks. If you're CJ Stroud, you're thinking, oh boy, what are we doing over here? So yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot to give up, but I think the benefits outweigh what you're giving up right now. At least the next 2 years, because they
Well,
came close.
maybe they see someone, the Texans see someone in the draft that they like, right? They got
Maybe,
an extra
maybe.
third, right? An extra seventh. And then next year, an extra second and then fourth. Like that's
Yeah,
a
it's a lot. It's a lot. You can do some stuff with that. You can do some stuff with that. All right. Why don't you let us know what's going on the Instagram side of things, people? Give us your hot takes on which deals you liked, which deals you didn't like. I will say this: the San Francisco 49ers have dropped 7 players. They've cleared up $88 million of cap room, and I don't know if that's going to be a good thing. They got to pay Purdy. What do they pay him? How much do they pay him? That's a whole other story. But yeah, a little painful to see here for my 49ers. So my hot take is that they are definitely going to be in the wild card side of things. They're not going to win the division. I'll tell you that. They're not going to win the
ooh.
division. All right, deal or no deal in terms of football is done. Let's flip to our favorite part of the show here. Let's talk about faith and deal or no deal. When as a new Christian, as an established Christian, one of the hardest things I think is representing your faith outside of church. It's easy when you're at church to not swear. It's easy at church to be polite and do all that and say, "Hey, praise Jesus," and there we go, and live your life the way you quote unquote should be. I don't know what's going
If
on
you
here, Cameron.
cursed right there, that would have been
Yeah,
perfect
that would
example.
have been perfect. Anyways, what was he fit around with this? It's hard to be unchristian like a church. Not that it's that hard. It happens. It happens. But it's harder
Church
to
in
do
the
that
city
without
got a
your
lot
peers.
of swearing going on sometimes. Pretty sure we got a
Yeah,
weed smoking section.
you heard that right. Section, not person, section. But they're working on it. They're working on it. But outside of church, is your faith deal or no deal? Do you compromise on what you say and how you do things? Do you stay silent when hot topics are being talked about? How do we live our life? And what are your thoughts on let's stick with North American society because that's kind of where we live. And what are your thoughts on how is it hard to be a Christian in these days? And if it is, what are some of your thoughts, tips that we can practically use to show our faith?
I think we've alluded to this over the last little while since the Olympics,
Mm,
really, that it's been a standing point for Christians to be more vocal about their faith. I think growing up, a lot of the times we wanted to kind of minister in a different way, minister through only just building relationships and having it be more of a just a open thing of questions being asked. I think that's still probably the most effective way, is still building relationships and walking
mm,
people through how you live is so different than the rest of the world, or at least how it should be. But because there's been so much animosity, so much attack on what we do as specifically as Christ followers, it's caused us to be, at least for many, to be more bold. I think it has actually separated those that are kind of lukewarm in the faith to those that are kind of real and want their Christian faith to be the most important treasuring God, the most important person above all things, most important thing above all things. And so what I think there's been a separation. There's been those that are going to be all in for Christ. The lukewarm are now kind of sliding to being
mm.
in the away from Christ category. And so that there's been a increase in boldness. So I think for those that are real about it, it's actually easier to step up in faith because they're seeing so many, like the many athletes we highlight, like CJ Stroud and Brock Purdy. It's easier now to say, yeah, I align with them. I align with these guys because what they're speaking is the truth, and I'm going to live out the truth in my life as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And I think if you go to a biblical example, it's the wheat from the chaff. That's the symbolism there. I think that in order to live it out, you have to have a good understanding of what your faith is actually about. And we're doing the Bible reading with the gamers. Um, one thing I will say that many Muslims know their Quran. They know what their book says. They know how to defend their faith. And that's something that we don't here, at least in North America, we don't do a lot of, right? Let's call it a non-Bible school kid basis. Not many of us have studied the Bible in the way we need to study it, have committed it to scriptures to memory. And I'll just take, for example, our parents, mom and dad. They'll always, when they're praying for us, they'll have some scripture that comes to them that they've read and they've memorized and internalized, and they'll talk to us about it in their life and pray about it into their lives. And I know personally for me, I have a long way to go before I get there. And I have to make that more of a priority in my life is understanding the Bible and how it relates to my faith, because what you internalize comes out. It's like reaping what you sow, right? If all you're internalizing is video games and Instagram and social media, you're going to be well versed in that. But when it comes to talking about your faith, when it comes to writing an exam or doing a project for work, you're not going to be prepared. We it's not really touched on a lot, and maybe you know a little better, but we're in a spiritual warfare. I think, or not. I know. And in Sunday school, you talk about putting on the whole armor of God, and it's kind of silly when you're a kid. You don't really understand like what you're going to face in the real world, but understanding what the pieces of armor is, what they mean, and knowing what you're equipped with helps you to understand this is a spiritual battle, and that you taking time to arm yourselves with knowledge, arm yourselves with your relationship with God, gives you confidence to take those opportunities. Like we've talked about, hey, asking God for opportunities, right? You can get an opportunity, but if you're not prepared, you're never going to win. And an easy example, analogy is you always see those like half court or halftime show things where they get people from the crowd to come and do things like something from half court. You can tell somebody who's played basketball versus somebody who's never touched a basketball in their life. And even that little bit of preparation gives them an edge to winning a prize. And so having that preparation within yourself, whether it's going to a life group, whether it's doing a reading plan with people all across the country, or whatever it is, gives you that extra step of confidence to say, hey, this is a situation going at work. I'm going to step out and I'm going to say, this is what I believe. Or, hey, can I pray for you? Hey, can I take that opportunity? And it's not just about what Joel can do, it's what God can do through Joel, but I have to prep myself to be used, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. A lot of it is preparation. A lot of it's relying on God. And it's also just it's going all in too, right? It's very easy,
Mm.
like you said, especially here in our Canadian Christian culture, North American Christian culture, to have one foot with the world and one foot with Christ. And I think it's probably the the barrier for many people to get across is to go all in, because you feel like you're giving up so much of what the world has to offer. It's so easy to have that and feel relaxed and have this. It's a temporary joy that you get from it, and that temporary joy could last for a few months or even years, but eventually it wears out. Eventually, it leads you basically to the path of destruction. And that's what happened when I tried to walk my Christian walk while still trying to live in the world. That's where I ended up in the worst place, the darkest place in my heart, because I was trying to do both, because I fell so hard, led me to places where I don't even like ever sharing and talking about my thoughts in my mind and the actions that I was doing. And I was just putting on a front with my whole life. And you'd never want to end up in that space. What you want is to hold on to the gospel truth as a whole. The Bible, we know, is something we can't just pick up the little parts that we like and take away the stuff that we don't like. We got to hold on to it as a whole, imprint it on our hearts, and walk in that in faith. It gives you the mindset of having kingdom purpose in all you do.
Yeah.
Kingdom purpose in your giving, in your time, and where you're working. That is your place where you have a platform to honor God. So are you going to work to be grumpy and just pay the bills, or is this the place where God's given you a platform to live out the gospel message and through all your coworkers and your bosses and whoever you encounter? Right? It's just a different focus when you have that mindset of kingdom purpose first. I'm serving God with all I got. I treasure God above anything else this world has to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think another easy analogy is you look at Olympic athletes. We talked about it started with Olympics. We're going to talk Olympics now. For 4 years, this person or team, unless it's the basketball team, dedicates their purpose to training, to qualifying, and then to getting a medal. And that's all they're about. It's this is my sport. This is what I need to do. Whether I need to get better, whether I need to push myself further, whatever it is, that's 100% their focus. And I know that's it in our society today. It's very awkward to think about, hey, I'm going to go all in for God. Everything I do is going to be for God, because it's like, oh, I have to pay my bills. I have to do well in school. I have to do well in my marriage. I got to hit all these points what you're saying, I have to, I need to. You're putting yourself first. But if you put God first in everything, if you go all out for God, those bills will be taken care of. Your relationship with your husband or wife will blossom. Opportunities that, if we always talk about putting God in a box, opportunities outside that box will come your way because you're living a life that's focused on kingdom, focused on what God wants, focused on where you can be the greatest asset possible with God. And once you put away those selfish desires, which is very difficult, right? It's very difficult because you can fall into the trap of covetousness. Like, oh man, I'm working so hard. This guy's got this. She got a promotion. They're driving this sweet car. Here I am taking the bus to work, or I don't have enough money to feed my kids or buy Christmas gifts. It's very easy for the noise of the world to pull you down. But if you continue to push in, to pursue God, to grow, develop, and be intentional, all those things will fade away because answers will come where you never thought possible, never thought how it could this could happen this way. And you'll find yourself moving from Winnipeg to Toronto based on one conversation 3 years ago. And then your brother keeps saying, "Oh, I was praying you here." And you're like, "Man, what do you mean I'm praying you here? What does that even mean?" But God made a way. God made a way through a difficult time. I'll be honest, I've never thought I could move to Toronto, but here I am, almost 4 years now, and it's not because of anything special I did. It's because God had a way. I had my brother who was faithful, and then we took an opportunity. So thinking about putting God first, thinking about, like you said, going to work with a positive attitude. Not everybody loves their job every single day of the week. That's impossible. They're gonna have bad days, but you decide, hey, am I gonna glorify God today? Or am I going to be a grumplepuss and just sit there and not talk to anybody? People notice that. The little things that you do as a Christian, where you take time to pray before you eat your lunch, or to take time to not have road rage, or you take the little things that normally people will just do, that gets noticed and that opens doors, maybe not necessarily for you, but for somebody down the line to start planting the seed, to start fertilizing the seed, and to see it blossom.
Let me throw a thought by you. You're a Christ follower. Let's say you got a best friend who's similar of age, also Christ follower dedicated. You know, you go through a challenge where your best friend, he gets sick, eventually he passes away. As a Christ follower, we know what the promise is for all those who believe and follow Jesus as their Lord and Savior is the promise of heaven and free from pain, free from suffering, and free from all the sin of the earth and all that stuff. He's now in heaven with Jesus. Imagine, when it comes to dealing with loss, even, do you have a kingdom purpose as understanding that, yeah, my friend, yeah, he passed away, but I know he's with Jesus, right? How is it kingdom purpose for you now as a believer to walk with someone who experienced loss and who also was, let's say it was the spouse of your best friend? How are you supposed to walk with them and encourage them along the way that, yeah, we know we can grieve and mourn here on earth, but he's actually now with Jesus in heaven? And how does that also give you a focus for knowing that time here on earth is short? So we do need to have a, part of how we live our Christian life, that there needs to be an emphasis on actually sharing this gospel message with as many people as possible. Two kind of part thought for you. How do you
Yeah.
walk that way?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't think because it hasn't happened to me yet. I think we have to remember what is our purpose here on earth. Our purpose here on earth isn't to live to 1 million years old. I remember it was maybe a Cedarwood retreat, youth retreat, or a summer camp thing where somebody took a yarn of string and they made a knot in it in one section and they just kept going on. And they stretched it out all across the entire auditorium. And they pointed this little knot and they said, "This knot is the time you have on earth. And if you know that my best friend, if that best friend was a Christian and loved the Lord and called Jesus his savior, it's okay to grieve. It's okay to mourn the loss, but it's also important to remember that we know where we're going to see this person again. We know that if Jesus comes or if we pass, we're going to link up in heaven and we're going to dap and we're going to enjoy God to all the glory. And so while we may mourn the loss of that person's connection here on earth, the day-to-day texts and all of that, it's a short period of time where you have to mourn and remember that, hey, I know this person, I know where they're going to be. And this ties into the perspective of, I think it would fuel me more to pursue God in a better way. I think that reminder of life is finite, that we have a short period of time. I don't want to look back and say I shoulda, coulda, woulda. I think that's something that we need to remember is you only have X amount of days here on earth. You only have X amount of days to preach to your friends, to show them the love of God, to talk to your family members, to show your coworkers, to make that small little dent in their lives that shows that, hey, God loves you, I love you, and I want you to be with me in heaven. It's precious. Time is very precious. And surrounding yourselves with the right things, with the right people, helps you exponentially impact life with that. I think that should answer both your points there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great. They're great answers. And I'll just add on that when you are living for God with all that you have, that even in the toughest times of your life, when you experience loss, when you experience the heartbreaks, just the difficult times, that's where if you're able to still say, Lord, you still give me joy, you still give me hope and peace, and allow God to move in your life, that is really the ultimate joy that you'll have from God, when you know that even in the toughest times, you will hold on to him and he'll see you through it. He'll be with you. He'll use it for purpose and plan. You know, a lot of the times when you're going through something difficult, God's trying to teach you something. He's trying to show you something, because he wants you to actually, as he breathes life into you, he wants you to one day breathe life into someone else through him.
Yeah.
And so that's just an encouragement for and viewpoint for those that are even just thinking about what this whole Christianity thing is all about. It's not about our ability or strength. It's about relying on God, trusting in his purpose and plan being greater than all other things, and knowing that we have a purpose that's greater than ourselves.
And I think there's a couple ways you can see that joy through pain or sorrow. In the Bible, there's so many different stories about people praising God when they're in jail, or Job who lost everything. There's things like that. And for some people, that's could be harder to connect with because it's like, oh, this is thousands of years old, blah, blah, blah. It's word of God, I get it, but it just doesn't resonate with me. Talk to older people at church. They are a resource and a wealth of knowledge and experience that is able to give you a real life example of, hey, this is something I went through in my life. And they probably have examples of where they dealt with it poorly and dealt with it in a God honoring fashion. And you will see example after example as you talk to people. And again, it doesn't have to be somebody who's 30, 40, 50 years older than you, right? Even the age gap between you and me, there's stories that you can tell me and I can tell you about how God has been faithful and how things like that. Just start talking to people and you will see that God is faithful in so many different ways, in so many different lives, in times where people recognize it and times where people don't recognize it. And that's just a way to build that bank of, hey, God did this in the past. So if God did this in the past, he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, and he loves me, why wouldn't he do it for me now? So I encourage you guys, you know, if reading the Bible is a bit of a challenge sometimes and not everybody is good at the words, that's okay. It's okay. Talk to somebody. Talk to somebody and ask them, hey, what's a miracle that's God done in your life? And you'll be surprised at the types of stories you're going to hear from the types of people. And yeah, I challenge you to try that this week and see how your faith is encouraged what God has done in other people's lives.
Yeah, I like that. I like the piece you said about, chatting with the people that are a little older and wiser as well. Like, my most impactful youth leader was Steve Norsworthy in his 30 years, 20 years older than me, 30 years older than me.
Yeah.
And so that's an encouragement for all those adults out there that pour into the youth and the young adults, because that's like that's the generation you need to keep building up, keep pouring into. I know it made a big difference in my life.
And it's also, for those who don't know any Steve at all, he's the exact opposite of us. He
Yes.
is not a sports guy. He's not a macho or whatever. He's this soft, gentle spoken, musical guy, but very intelligent and very faithful. And yeah, you bring up Steve Norsworthy, and I think of how the impact he's had in all of our lives, actually, and that's incredible. So shout out to you, Steve. Thank you, bro. Yeah, I think that kind of wraps up for us today. So the challenge for the week, you got two challenges. Sports challenge is give us your take, or your hot take on the NFL free agency signings, but also go talk to somebody different, a little older than you, a little wiser than you, if you have that in your circle, and ask them this question: what has God done for you in your life that you can share with me. And we'd love to hear your stories and how that went this week. Hit us up on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, on TikTok, for those of you TikTokers out there, and share your story, share the link. Not to glorify us, not to take, say how good of a sports takes we have and how smart we are, but to glorify and honor God with this platforms. So have a great week. We look forward to sharing your stories and interactions. And yeah, we love you guys. Love God, love others. Let's roll. Peace, world.
Peace.